Welcome to episode 176, originally published on the 7th of November 2025. The Science Fiction Encyclopedia states that there is a false belief that SF and humour do not mix. The SFE does concede, though, that the two are more successfully fused in short stories rather than in the novel form. Like Douglas Adams, Harry Harrison and Robert Sheckley, John Sladek was a writer who was able to make it work at novel length. The Reproductive System is Sladek's first SF novel, originally published in 1968. This frenzied satire is built on the comic potential of robots gone awry, consuming everything in their path and remaking the world in their own image. As absurd as it is, there's something surprisingly prescient about what the novel has to say about the high-tech world we live in decades later. In the 1940s, the mathematician John von Neumann did theoretical work on the idea of an artificial entity which, in imitation of nature, would be able to manufacture copies of itself, a self-replicating machine. In the 1980s, the engineer K. Eric Drexler speculated about the application of this concept to tiny nanomachines. He imagined nanoscale robots entering into an endless loop of self-replication, consuming all of the Earth's biomass in a reproductive frenzy. To Drexler's consternation, this doomsday notion was popularized as the grey goo scenario, in which the planet would be reduced to a lifeless nanite sludge. The American writer John Sladek, who lived from 1937 to 2000, took up von Neumann's ideas and preempted Drexler with his comic science fiction novel The Reproductive System, published in 1968. In Sladek's anarchic full-length debut in the SF field, it's macro-scale robots, what Drexler would later call clanking replicators, that run amok. The product of what used to be a failing Utah toy company, these insatiable machines soon set their sights on the metallic feast of Las Vegas and beyond. A showcase for Sladek's playful, manic style of SF satire, The Reproductive System is a breakneck comic inferno which skewers the military-industrial complex, consumerism and scientific hubris. While Sladek is now little known, his absurd novel is seriously relevant in a time of careless pursuit of dangerous technologies in the name of profit. Sladek had an unusual life and career. He was born in the small city of Waverly, Iowa, but moved north to Minneapolis, Minnesota. In 1966, aged 29, he relocated to London and remained in the UK for 2 decades. It was here that he produced almost all of his published work. He collaborated with other Americans in the country, including Pamela Zerlin and his close friend and fellow Iowan, Thomas M. Dish. Like those writers and J.G. Ballard, he was encouraged to experiment by Michael Moorcock during his historic period as editor of New Worlds magazine. Sladek produced relatively few science fiction novels, but a large body of short fiction gathered in collections like Keep the Giraffe Burning from 1977. He also restlessly explored other genres and types of writing, including gothic fiction, thrillers, parodies, detective stories, and even Arachne Rising, a book of hoax astrology which apparently convinced some readers that Sladek, writing as James Bow, had unearthed the suppressed 13th sign of the zodiac. In 1986, Sladek returned to Minneapolis, but published little after this point. After he was diagnosed with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, he told only very close family and friends. He died in March of 2000, a few days after being told he had no chance of being listed for a lung transplant. Dish said that, quote, he just sighed away his life. Today, this unique writer and his work are little remembered, but given his emphasis on runaway technology, blind greed, and the absurd, it could be said that we're living in John Sladek's world. The Reproductive System is a comic science fiction novel which proceeds at a rapid pace through its 24 short chapters. The cast of characters is large, a rogues gallery of mad scientists, hapless spies and clueless industrialists with names like Barthemo Beale, Aurora Candlewood and Professor Toto Smilax. The novel opens in the failing town of Milford, Utah, and in the similarly failing Wampler Toy Company. This ineptly run family business is hobbled by the obsolescence of its one product, a copyright-infringing walking doll based on the likeness of a half-forgotten 30s starlet. The Wamplers get the bright idea to get some money from the government, and soon they're feasting at the infinite money trough of the military-industrial complex. Milford becomes the site of Project 32, a top-secret operation run with an iron fist by the reclusive Professor Smilax. Staffed by a ragtag band of scientific eccentrics and dropouts, Project 32 soon creates a litter of semi-intelligent, self-replicating machines, the reproductive system of the title. Driven by their voracious appetite for the metals they need to reproduce, the system's machines rapidly go rogue, but are seemingly stopped by Cal, a plucky graduate of MIT, that is the Miami Institute of Technocracy. Soon the machines are again running amok, consuming a small town and later conquering Las Vegas. Nevada counted her towns and came up too short. Sladek's chaotic characters are plunged into an erratic caper with human freedom in the balance, a struggle that ranges from the deserts of the American Southwest to the streets of Marrakesh, where a covert launch might make France the surprise frontrunner in the space race. The hectic structure of the reproductive system is an asset to its humorous approach. Sladek frequently switches perspectives and location, turning his attention from one absurd situation to the next, so that none of them outstay their welcome. Many chapters have a distinct internal structure of their own, so they resemble short stories which, outside of a few digressive episodes, mesh into the larger whole. Standout segments include Chapter 13, Wonder Journey, a psychedelic stream of consciousness odyssey into a Las Vegas reshaped by the coming of the self-replicating robots. Sladek's characters are not deep personalities, but rather hooks for him to hang ridiculous names and backstories onto. Toto Smilax, for example, was not only named by his parents after the dog in The Wizard of Oz, but also raised as a dog, which explains only part of his bizarre worldview. This extends to recreational dental procedures he performs on himself. These caricatures flit about a warped funhouse version of the world in the 1960s. Sladek's Morocco, for example, is a nest of spies seething with paranoia, strafed by friendly fire and spiderwebbed with farcical plot and counterplot. For all its absurdity, though, the reproductive system is anchored by a science fiction concept which is not only solid but quite prescient. In the novel, as in our world, all too many people are content to defer every thought and decision to witless machines. Smilax has ready analogues in today's crop of self-professed geniuses, supposed captains of industry desperate to use technology to impose their stupidity and ignorance on the world. The reproductive system itself, of course, is easy to map onto consumer capitalism, a rapacious force that eats up everything in its path, bent only on its own reproduction. The elements of good SF and the anarchic impulse of comedy do not always mesh, but with the reproductive system, Sladek found a way. Thanks for listening. For more classic science fiction reviews, visit andyjohnson.xyz. You can also find the show on YouTube and follow updates on Blue Sky. In both cases, just search Classic SF with Andy Johnson. Finally, to get in touch, use the contact form on my site or hit the link in the episode description to send a text message.